Okay, so here we're going to talk a little bit about this rear panel that we have. On the rear panel, we have our power inverter. I went with 1,000 watts because that's what suits my needs, and I went with a pure sine wave. Yours may vary. We have a circuit breaker that's going to protect everything, so basically our power from the auxiliary battery is going to come right here to this terminal on the circuit breaker and then distribute via the power inverter. Down here's our solar controller. You want to make sure that the amps on your solar controller match up with the amps that your solar panels are putting out. Roughly 10 amps per 100 watt panel. Right here we're running a 30 amp controller. Currently we only have a 100 amp or 100 watt panel. We may upgrade that to a second 100 watt. We may just deal with what we have. We're going to run this for a little bit and figure out what's going on. On this side, this is an SAE connector that I've installed. Our solar panel, we're using the Goal Zero Nomad. It's foldable, which means I can keep it behind the back seat. It's not hard mounted all the time. Mainly I can just go ahead and run it when the if we're going to be stopped more in a couple days and I want to go ahead and supplement the power that's coming into this system. This is a voltmeter. This will give you instant read on the voltage, and it will also give you a rough idea, not 100% accurate, of how much of your battery capacity is left. You can turn it on and then cycle between the two results. Over here I installed an auxiliary fuse panel. I do like to run some other accessories on this truck. Some of them I run when I'm out in the woods and don't want to have to worry about draining the main batteries or the starting battery on the truck. This whole thing is geared so that I can relax, and then in the morning, no matter what happens, be it the fridge running, I left a light on, etc., I'll still be able to start the truck and get out of here. Truck will go ahead and charge that third battery if I make that mistake. It's got a pretty big alternator in it, and we'll go from there. Okay, so here we're going to show you a couple of the different things that I have wired to that auxiliary fuse box. I have two marine grade watertight 12 volt plugs. This is on the passenger side of the bed that I can access for charging, running the little smoker or whatever the case is. On this side we have an SAE connector. That's what I use to actually power my fridge. We have another 12 volt marine grade plug. We have an on-off switch, which will controls this one here. This will give us a voltmeter indicator when it's on, and then underneath the cover are two USB 3.0 quick charge compatible USB ports for charging up phones or whatever else you need while you're out there. One of the things that I'd like to point out on these Dodge trucks is the insane amount of space that's actually between or behind these taillights. So to remove the taillight, you're basically going to undo these two screws here, and they are T20 Torx. And it will take you even less time because I'm doing this one-handed. I want to show you how all this works. So all of these switches that are on these side bed panels that we've talked about, or will talk about depending on where I cut this in on the video, are fed in through behind these lights. So once you have that off, you're just going to basically pull straight back, and the light comes out. And then obviously detach these if you want to go ahead and work, but you can see in here all this added space. So all those switch panels, I basically just drilled a hole with a hole saw on the other panel and then just run them through. Additionally, I don't know if I can get this to focus, we have this void back here in behind the bed, and that goes in between the two bed sides. And what I did on this install is the way that I got the power back into here. Initially, a long time ago, I had ran it all the way down up through the bed and into this light hole from the lead battery on the passenger side. But I wanted to put all these outlets on the new auxiliary battery. So I ran it through there, and I just went ahead, get that glare out. So right here in this pocket, and on this more of a vertical shelf that's right here, I just went ahead and drilled a hole, put a rubber grommet, and that just comes right in back in there where those wires are coming out right there. And that allows everything to wrap in and makes it quite protected and gives me access. Now those wires that are coming out here, these 4, are going to go to that auxiliary fuse block that I have on that right rear panel. So your vehicle may vary, but on these Gen 4 Dodges, this is a pretty deep little inset. I'll bet you it's probably 1.5 inches, maybe even a full 2 inches deep. And what we're doing is we're taking advantage of that when we go ahead and we install this panel on the back here. And this gives us room to keep all of our cables behind it and hidden, not to mention getting them outside the bed body, or to our auxiliaries or whatever else we need. Now the way I decided to go ahead and mount an outside panel, initially I was just going to try and put everything on here, but the shapes and the contours just weren't working out. So we went ahead and we got some diamond plate sheet. It's 1/8 inch diamond plate aluminum, and it works really well. And then to secure it to the bed body, what I did is I just kind of drilled some holes and installed some riv nuts throughout, so the whole panel can come down. My truck did have 2 loops on the forward and the back, there for tie downs or anything else, and they interfered with the panel. So I just took a air grinder real quick and just cut those suckers off, and we're good. It's nothing that I'm gonna miss. Here's another one I want to talk about. This is the No-Code Genius. This is a battery charger slash tender. Now, a lot of people will wire these hard into their auxiliary batteries and expect to be able to use them as quote-unquote shore power if they end up in a campsite. I recommend against that. Most people that deal with a lot of overland wiring will tell you not to. They really don't hold up well for that. But as far as just a simple battery charger, in case your battery goes dead, these things run awesome, and they work really well. One feature that I really like on them is on the leads, I actually have this little plug here, and you can disconnect it and you can plug it back in. They sell an extension, which is I purchased, and I ran it from the auxiliary battery. It's all the way back up there, and that will be this wire right here. And I'll leave that pigtail down here, so that way if for some reason I do end up going on a weekend trip or whatever, and I've ran that thing dead and I don't have time to let it sit in idle or use a soul to recharge it, I can just go ahead and plug this charger in direct there without having to crawl all the way up and get inside that battery box, which is going to save my knees and back quite a bit. These Diamondback covers are pretty slick, but the only problem is once I get my tent rack installed on there, that cover's not going to open up like that again. So the only way to do anything in the back of there is either reach up with a pole, have a drawer slide, or just straight crawl back in there. And it's 21.5 inches. I know this because it has a lot to do with some of the other projects that I'm going to be filming shortly, and it's not a fun spot to crawl into. Wasn't too bad when I was 18, 19 years old, but at 45 it kind of sucks. Just a quick note on that No-Code charger, and I don't want to give anybody the wrong info or the wrong idea. I've had that particular one now for about 6 years. I use it for lawn mowers. I've used it for my Jeep. I've charged truck batteries. I've charged horse trailer batteries. And as a simple charger for charging a battery, it works excellent. I just do not recommend them for any kind of long-term or permanent quote-unquote shore power type applications. I'm a little bit weird when it comes to my stuff, and I'm kind of a neat freak, but this is going to be the back of that rear tailgate panel, and everything's just kind of sucked in nice and tight, and that's going to install in the bed pocket on the passenger side. I just try and like to keep my wiring clean. I don't know, it's just what I do. All right, so another quick note. You'll notice in the center on these Gen 4s, there's not much. It's just a little notch here. I think my bed liner filled up most of it, and I'm pretty sure it was designed so you could put a 2x4 across the bed, to keep gear from sliding. But we're gonna go ahead and use that as our notch for our lower exit, and this is where our charger is gonna come out. Okay, so this is gonna be our rear panel, and basically we just took a standard battery box, drilled some holes under the bed, attached it down to the floor. The wiring I brought in, so the main power cable off of that would be this one right here, comes off the other battery up in the hood. And I just ran it through. There's a body plug right there. Drilled a hole in the body plug as a grommet. And then I just sealed it up with some silicone. And it comes all the way up and it runs into this little black piece up here. That is our isolator. And it's really important that we have an isolator in these applications. Basically what it does is it allows the alternator in the truck to charge up our auxiliary battery whenever the vehicle is running. When we turn the ignition off and there's no power, then it blocks that battery from draining any power from the two batteries that are up under the hood. This way, no matter what happens when we're at night running lights, we forget to turn something off, the fridge runs too long, we're on day 12, whatever the case is, I can run this battery back here completely dead, our auxiliary battery, and still start the truck, which is very important, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you don't have a buddy to come and jump start you. So basically we come in, power from the front battery to the isolator goes down to the positive post of our auxiliary battery, and then directly feeding off of there is another red cable that comes up into this fuse. Let's see. Right there. Anyway, that is a 250 amp fuse, and then that runs back to the inverter and to our rear plate. Okay, so now everything's back together, it's hooked up, everything's running correctly. You'll see right down here, this is my solar controller. It's kind of hard to see in this video, but you can see where the battery is a little bit yellow, which just means that it's going down. That'll then turn to red when the battery's dead. Now, this particular battery, this is a 100 amp hour Type 31 battery. It has been running this fridge non-stop for the last 52 hours. And it still probably has about half its life left. So I'm pretty impressed with it. And that's with zero solar augmentation. That's just it running. Here you can see we have our circuit breaker, which is protecting everything. If that breaker trips, everything else dies. Our fuses are all hooked up. And then this is our little onboard voltmeter. And this is showing that right around half the battery life left. Again, these things are not exact, but they're definitely going to give you an idea when you're out running. But so far, I'm pretty impressed with this little fridge. And this is the Falcon Overland 75 quart dual zone. There's their logo. It's over here somewhere. And we're gonna build a slider for this thing. But for right now, it's just kind of sitting in the bed. Aluminum's expensive. Another thing I'd like to mention is this thing right here. So I picked a pair of them up for around 25 or 30 bucks, I believe. These are just the galvanized ones. They did make some that were black or that were, spraying bed liner, but I'm pretty sheltered in here and I really wasn't worried about corrosion, so I just ran them. And I'll tell you what, in this application, it's really nice because it basically will keep anything in the bed from sliding into the inverter or any other panels that I have. On the other side, I have one buried in behind all that, but it does a really good job of keeping the little odds and ends, dog bowls, some hand tools, water bottles, etc. Just in one spot instead of flying all over around your bed. We'll probably do another video in the future with a full layout that shows how everything is set up. But yeah, there you go.